directors. I now call this meeting to order. Director Erdman, lead us in a flag salute, please.
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, if we could have a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you. Mrs. Martin, may I please have a roll call?
Bucks.
Here.
England.
Present.
Fowler.
Present.
Williams.
Present.
Murray.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Erdman.
Here.
Arlo.
Here.
Nom.
Present.
All members present.
Great, thank you. I'd just like to publicly announce that the board met in a workshop last Tuesday, January 3rd. The purpose of the workshop was to go over some financial issues within the district. This evening at 5 o'clock, members of the board and members of the public convened in the auditorium for a presentation regarding school closures of the 4 elementary schools. This is in connection, obviously, with the building of our new elementary school. That is required by law. That was conducted at 5 o'clock. We also discussed the necessary technical closure of the secondary school, the high school, middle school, and the need that we will have to rename that as the Northern Lebanon Secondary School. So that presentation was conducted at 5 o'clock this evening. Immediately before tonight's evening, the board did meet in executive session to go over some student disciplinary issues and to get some legal advice on some other personnel matters. Immediately after this meeting tonight, assuming the solicitor is available, we will also be meeting in executive session to again get some legal advice pertaining to some contractual obligations of the district. With that said, we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. The board of directors has had an opportunity to review the agenda. The agenda was made public and posted public prior to the meeting. Is there a motion to adopt tonight's agenda? Thank you. Is there a second? All in favor of adopting tonight's agenda, please indicate with a yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Agenda is adopted. We'll move now to the presentation portion of our meeting. I would just like to, first of all, state that the high school students of the month for January are Michael Arnold and Aaron Shuey. I don't believe either of them are here. This award is sponsored jointly by the Fredericksburg and Jonestown Lions Club, and each recipient will be recognized at a future meeting of the Lions Club. The middle school student of the month for January is Simeon England. Director England, I think that gets all your kids at some point, right? Yeah, this award is sponsored by the Northern Lebanon County Rotary Club, and each recipient will be recognized at a future meeting of the Rotary Club. I remember seeing all of their names at some point. That's very good. Alex Selby, is Alex here? Do not see that. Student board representative will not have a report tonight. And then the last report for this evening, at least under this portion of the agenda, is Valiant Vikes. Mr. Lugar.
Can you all hear me? Good evening, board. I'm Dave Lugar. I'm one of the assistant principals here for the secondary building. With School Board Appreciation Month, you actually have something in front of you. Ties in with Valiant Bikes. It is one of our bracelets we had made up, and it was one of the rewards we gave out to the student body in the end of September or at the beginning of September for Spark the Spirit Day. We also had rally towels made up. Now, they were associated with Mr. Bedinka's one class for graphics. It's one of the higher level courses. And they designed this, and it's a rally towel. We actually introduced them for the volleyball district champion or game that they were at down in Twin Valley. All the buses got one, all the kids on the buses, as well as the volleyball team. So that's a gift to you, just as a little bit of kind of what we do and what we're trying to do. Just a little bit about the program. Valiant Bikes is a program that awards positive student behavior, acts of kindness and encouragement, attendance and academic achievement, and overall good choices. Last year was my first year, and I inherited that Valiant Bikes program. My first question to the faculty and staff was how do we make it better and make more impact for students and our community. There are two main components to Valiant Bikes that we build on in this existing program. First was one award that was an individual basis. It's academically driven and school-based reward driven. Each marking period, every student has a risk calculated score converted into a Viking dollar. The risk score receives points for the following: excused absences, unexcused absences, suspensions, detention, and other disciplinary consequences, grades only for a C- and below, keystone exams and CDTs only for the second and third exams for the year. The lower the risk score, the higher the Viking reward dollar. So if you don't have those things, you get more dollars. It's kind of a PBIS type of model, but a little bit tweaked that schools run. Each student who meets expectation will receive an amount of a Viking dollar. It is not a true dollar. You have an example of one of those in front of you. It's a Viking star dollar, so it's a little bit different, same amount. So the Viking star dollars that you have in front of you actually is for rewarding positive behavior or good deeds. It could be helping carrying a book bag to a student. It could be picking up a piece of trash in the classroom, helping out in the classroom, those types of things that a teacher provides you. We have a bunch of them outside in the library, outside the library wall, posted up in front of the kind of our zone for the Valiant Bikes. Viking dollars can be used for a variety of things, beverages and snacks at Deja Brew. They can use them towards merchandise, shirts, etc. that we had made up. They can towards that to kind of offset the cost. We have these and made up well as sweatpants. There's other gear. I just didn't want to be like clothing closet, but pretty cool stuff. You are allowed to purchase them. Room 50 is the area you need to go to. We've also sold this merchandise at football games. We're trying to get to wrestling and basketball games as well. So we also brought back the honor roll. So if you are on honor roll, you get an athletic ticket. You also have one of those as an example in front of you. So if you made honor roll, it's brought up. We see who made it. We give those out to the students, and they get one free admission into a game. We started this in the fall, so it's for the winter sports for right now, but the fourth marking period, we will bring it into for football games or whatever in the fall. Fundraising doesn't cost you a thing. Isn't that great? It is all fundraising within. Our biggest one is the candy sale. That's a big one. And with that, we do well, and we were able to fund the things that we do throughout the school year. Our kids also get a pretty big reward, which was the Chicago Boys. That is this acrobatic group that came in to perform for those students who sold a set amount of candy. They also get a movie sale. So the Spark the Spirit Day revolves around, we have a big reward at the end of the month where all our teachers, district staff, custodians, you name it, these people wear these shirts on that Friday. And we usually give some type of little gift. Usually it's a little candy to the students, or an ice cream sandwich to the kids at lunch. Our big ones, we've brought in ice cream trucks and water ice trucks. We've also handed out Italian Rita water ice, which I'll never do again because it was really messy. And I didn't spill any, but I think even Amy Hoke got away with not having stuff spilled on her. So those are some of the things that we do for the Spark the Spirit Day at the end of the month. And the kids start to look forward to it, where we wear that gear, and the kids are promoted to wear whatever gear they have that's Northern Lebanon driven. Just in ending, there are a few people I'd like to mention that help out with the Valiant Bikes, and they're very dedicated. That is Yvonne Erb, Ann Hartman, and Laura Wiest. They do a tremendous job with me. I can't take this credit without them. They do so much of the tracking and so much of the boots on the ground type of component to this. So I'm indebted to them. So I want to just say thank you for giving me this time, a little bit about Valiant Bikes, and what positive things are going on in this school. So.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lugar. Any questions regarding Valiant Bikes?
I will just say that there have been some. All right. There we go. Nobody wants to hear me talk anyway. I will just say that there have been some really cool days. The work that they do, the staff, Mr. Lugar, I think the kids are really excited on some of those days. I know my son, like the first thing he told me after school on the ice cream truck day, and I did go out and get some ice cream too, Mr. Lugar, but Dad, I was able to go through and get ice cream, and then I got to go through and get the Italian ice too. So he was like excited. Somehow he managed to get both. But I remember standing outside talking to some teachers that were waiting in line, and just thinking about, as we've talked about the culture here and climate, and trying to begin to change some of that. I looked at one of the teachers and said, this is the kind of thing that I'm envisioning. This is the kind of day that makes you feel proud to be here. And certainly there's a lot of work to be done. And there's been ideas, and some of you have thrown out ideas. I know Director Urban, you've talked about mentors and developing that program. I haven't shared this, but once we get it up and running, I know Mrs. Tivani is currently working on getting that going. And so those types of things you can't do without the effort of the staff. But I know it's important to them, and they've really begun to develop this as turned into, there's quite a bit being done for the students and celebrating their successes. And so that's important. So thank you guys for that, Mr. Lugar. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Messinger, might as well just continue with your report.
Yeah, sure. The big thing is we have an in-service coming up, and I don't know that we talk enough. We talk a lot about construction. We certainly talk about, some of the fun things, but I don't know that we talk enough about academics. We have talked about the curriculum cycle. January, the past 2 years has been a day where the teachers remember there's a 5-year cycle at this point. There's different assignments, tests, things that they need to do each year. And we've been using January as that day. This year, we're going to begin with a state required mandate on safety training that Mr. Reese has a song and dance prepared to do a quick it's an hour to begin, but then we're going to get into curricular work, and high school will continue their curricular work in the afternoon, while elementary, for the first time since I've been here, will actually be taking their benchmark results. And we don't have all our data that we're going to do in January, but we do have benchmark results. They're going to take that, and they are going to do a complete analysis of their student progress as a class with individuals, looking at it from what I would call a tier 1 standpoint, meaning how are we doing delivering the instruction that we're supposed to be delivering? Is our curriculum, and this is the tie into the curriculum, is the curriculum giving us enough opportunities? Do we have everything covered that we're supposed to cover, or do we need to tweak that? And looking at, okay, the kids didn't do well on this particular skill. Is that because we've taught it and they didn't get it and we need to reteach it? Or is that because we haven't taught it yet and that's something we may need to focus on when we get to that skill in February or March? So you have that component of it, and then you have the component of individual students and growth. And so they will have the ability to, through our Ed Insight, through our data warehouse that everything is getting put into, and we've now taught them how to run some reports. They're going to look at each individual kid and they're going to say, oh boy, Miss Martin's not doing as well as I thought she was going to do. And I got to probably give her some extra support in this area, but Director Murray's really lighting it on fire and doing a great job. So you got the individual component, and then you have the curricular / instruction as a whole component. And they'll be working on that in the afternoon and then submitting a report. And on top of it, they're going to work with their grade level colleagues, Brooks, my grade level colleague tonight, and discuss, are you seeing the same problems that I'm seeing? And trying to determine if those problems that are across the district or if they're specific to that teacher. Because if I'm not doing a good job of teaching something, But Director Nam I may want to pick his brain as to, well, what are you doing that your kids are doing so well in that skill and mine are not? So I really think that's an important step for us academically. It's something that I'm going to do my best effort to put in the next issue of Due North, because I think it's time for us to make sure we're talking about some of that. People may get bored. I have to figure out how to do that in an interesting, exciting way. But wanted to talk about that real quickly from a construction standpoint. Just a quick update there. The roofing is on a large portion of the building. They're finishing up the district office at this point, and then the middle wing, and then the wing closest to the south is yet to be done. Hoping to have all that roofing on by the end of this month. But the pieces that do have roofing, they've begun painting. So you can go in now and you can see blue accent walls in the far wing. The flooring company is supposed to be in this week. Once the painting is done, they're gonna follow along with the flooring, and then they're gonna right after that they'll be coming in and starting to do the ceiling tiling and work. So in the next 3 to 4 weeks, in the wings that have the wings that don't have roofing, they'll be working on completing, and the ones that do, they'll be doing painting, flooring, and ceilings. So if we ever, believe it or not, it would be easier to get over there to give you a tour if it got cold, because right now it's a muddy mess. But at some point we'll have a pathway. We'll get you over there and get a chance to look at it. But in the meantime, we do sneak in and get some pictures. We have another update coming out soon. And then at the end of the month, we hope to go get some more pictures and get those out. So that's where we are with that. And finally, I just wanted to, you do have some things in front of you tonight. Our entrepreneurship class actually made the mugs. You'll notice Director Murray, Director Bucks, they have the lady logo, and so, but it is Board Appreciation Month. We did want to take a minute just to say thank you. I know the job doesn't pay extremely well, but it's a critical job, and thank you for your service. We are trying to get our kids to involved in the making of the gifts, and they did again this year. So I appreciate that. And thank you again for all your work with the school district. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Messinger? Hearing none, thank you for the report. We will move to old business. Is there any old business for this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. Interested persons were asked to complete a written request to address the board prior to the public input session. Individuals will be acknowledged by the board president in accordance with policy 903. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 4 minutes duration. I will, as a courtesy, let you know when there is 30 seconds left in your 4 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer, that is me. No participant may address or question school directors individually. I understand that we have one member of the public for public comment this evening, and that is Mr. Chris Werner. Mr. Werner? And when you step up to the mic, please just make sure that that button is raised. And if it's raised, just state your name, and I will start your 4 minutes after that.
Hi, I'm Chris Werner. I have 2 kids going to the middle school here. And I want to thank you for allowing me to discuss the middle school holiday concert that was held on the night of the 20th. More precisely, the intermission between the 7th and 8th grade course prior to the 6th grade. An auditorium of children, parents, grandparents, and friends witnessed the spectacle of our middle school choir director acting in poor taste. Never have I been in public or even a private setting where an entire room is taken aback by the behavior of one individual. Everyone in the auditorium that evening was able to witness our choir director pushing on the shoulder of a student that needed assistance across the stage, and then leaving her to navigate the rest of the stage and stairs on her own. Luckily, another student recognized that the individual needed help and stepped out of line to help guide the student in need of assistance down the stage stairs. Students behind him waited patiently as the two students took their time in getting down the stairs in order to make sure that an accident did not occur. While this was taking place, the choir director was saying her thank yous and grew impatient with the amount of time that the 7th and 8th grade chorus were taking to exit the stage. She rudely made a comment into the microphone that the students were taking too much time. They were creating a traffic jam and needed to hurry up and clear off the stage. The time that had passed since she left the student on her own was less than a minute. Her impatience and lack of empathy for the students was incredibly unprofessional and cast a bad light on our district. An audible gasp was heard in the auditorium that evening because of the insensitivity and immaturity she showed in making those remarks in a public setting. In addition to her actions at the holiday concert, a student has also talked about her behavior in the classroom during school. She consistently tears them down, telling them that they sound awful. They can't sing. They shouldn't even be in chorus. She will apologize after the remarks are made, but they never should have been said in the first place. She actually told the students after the performance that they suck. Used the word bitch 4 times in 2 sentences describing their performance at the concert. Furthermore, she told them they made her look bad. To paraphrase some of the school board members here tonight, our school is a place that cares about the mental health of our students and promotes a culture of inclusion. Northern Lebanon leadership has also said that our school should be a positive environment, safe, and have accountable leadership. The vision of our school is to inspire today and equip for tomorrow. That's why I'm here. For accountability. How can we inspire our students if teachers, adults that our children are supposed to trust and look up to are tearing our kids down with their words? Our music program should be a safe place for students with a common interest to come together and enjoy their talents and performing for the community. The music program at Northern Lebanon is already small. We should be encouraging students, no matter what their skill level, to participate.
30 seconds.
The choir director should not be crushing the spirit of the students that generally enjoy singing. I know a couple students who love to sing and are already expressing that they will not continue in the music program at our school because of the actions and treatment of the current teacher. How is this teacher supposed to equip our students for tomorrow while she's taking the joy from them? To be honest, I really don't want to be here tonight, but I'm here because if you don't speak up for this wrong, who will? If it was my child or yours, wouldn't you want someone to stand up for them? My hope in coming here this evening is that the situation be addressed with the teacher so that she understands the severity of her actions. Behavior like she exhibited that evening and in the classroom should not be tolerated. It needs to be addressed immediately. If
4
not
minutes.
Done so already. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Werner, before you go, I did speak with Mr. Werner earlier and talked about the fact that it's a personnel issue and I wouldn't be able to say much. However, I would encourage you actually, Mr. Lugar is one of our high school secondary administrators. And if there's ever a situation like that where a parent feels as though a teacher needs to be addressed, actually, I would really like to have, I don't want to wait till the board meeting. I don't mind people come and talk at the board meeting. Certainly I understand that. However, I'd prefer to be able to address any situation quickly. And therefore, I'm going to ask Mr. Lugar just to give you his information in terms of email address and obviously, the high school phone number but so that anytime that something might come up from a standpoint that you feel we need to know about, that we do so very quickly and timely. And that way, that accountability that you talk about, we can respond to a little more quickly for you. So if you guys wouldn't mind connecting, that'd be a good step in the right direction. I think in terms of us, hey, anytime you have a concern, you got a connection to be able to call up and say, hey, can I talk to you about this? If that's all right with you.
Am I allowed to make a statement back?
Sure.
So there was a video posted of the performance. Everything was on there. 2 days later, it was modified. That situation that I talked about was taken out. So somebody already knows and is correcting. I just want to make sure that is continual.
Right. And that situation, I will say I did know about, and as did the board. However, you said some other things tonight that I did not. So if you, that might be something that Mr. Lugar can look into a little more carefully. Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Martin, is there any other public comment that you're aware of?
No, there isn't.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is our items for board action. These are items 8 through 14. It should be noted that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 84 of 1986. By notice of the president, the following action requires voice vote. All votes in favor shall be stated with an aye or yes. All votes opposed shall be stated with a nay or no. All members abstaining shall state I abstain when prompted. The votes will be recorded in the minutes as a unanimous roll call vote unless there are any votes in opposition or abstention. If necessary, I may subsequently call for a roll call vote to be recorded in the minutes. We'll move to item 8, monthly items. Dr. Messinger.
Yeah, the 3 items, the normal approval of minutes, the student activity account, and the cash disbursements.
Any questions on item 8? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 8?
Motion to approve item 8.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving item 8, please indicate with a yes.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries as a unanimous vote. We'll move to item 9, budget and finance.
A couple of different things here. I'll try to group a few together here, but then it gets there's some different. I'll go through, and if there's questions or any you need to vote separately, you can. 9.1 is the treasurer. As you remember from December when we realigned, we talked about having the business manager serve as the board treasurer, which is a very common to do instead of it being a school board assignment. So that is on there. We did not have that on the reorganization minutes, so we had to list it so that the public would have a chance to comment on it. So that's there. Leanne, you want to talk about we turned down the resolution in December, so therefore Leanne had to submit a preliminary budget and what goes into that, and you want to talk at all about that?
Sure. So this is a very preliminary budget done in a very quick turnaround. And we just used some basic 2% increase all around, a 3.5% staffing increase. Just like I said, these are very preliminary numbers. Obviously an increase in our bond payment. And then this does include a 7% real estate tax increase, which will mean that we will apply with PDE just to keep our options open for an exception.
And to clarify, we are not recommending that. That
Now's the time.
is the state requires to show the need to be able to tell us what the exemption amount is that we qualify for. So that
Correct. This was the requirement to apply for the exception, just to have that there as an option to see what we can do.
While
and if
we
need
want to
it.
find out what that dollar amount is, what that amount of money is, that is a hurdle that we have to jump it. That's not what Ms. Martin is saying we should do. Just wanna
Correct.
make sure that's clear. PA counseling services, Kelly's back there, real quick, 10-second version. So they're going, this is not currently using, but yet a renewal because of the current service is not able to take care of some of the counseling services that we currently provide. 9.4, back to you, Leanne, anything about that?
This is just an agreement for us to be invest with one of the investment firms that is very commonly used throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And the reason that I added them, we usually do go with PFM, which is kind of the same thing as the investment advisor we use for our bonds. However, this firm's investment rates have been higher. So I would like to add them on as an option that's approved by the board for us to invest with them as well.
And while we're on you, depositories.
Sure. This is just your standard list that's approved each year. And obviously I added on to that the new one, Pliget, that is also on there to approve the resolution with them. Otherwise, this is just a standard list with no additions from prior year.
And thank you for looking into the investments. My understanding is that right now this particular trust investment opportunity is 0.5% higher right now on some of the CDs, which is obviously significant for us, but appreciate the effort to look into those possibilities.
Certainly.
That's it for number 9.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve items 9.1 through 9.5?
Motion to approve 9.1 through 9.5.
Second. Thank you. Is there any discussion? I would just note regarding 9.1, and this is the appointment of the election of the board treasurer. I know that this is a significant change from the way that the district has operated in prior years. From my perspective, I think this is more consistent with our current board policy. And there are some things within our current policy that actually I think indicated to me that what we were doing previously by having a board member serve in that role was incorrect. So I think this is the right move for us to make. And thank you, Leanne, for being willing to step into that position. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of items 9.1 through 9.5, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We'll move then to item 10. This is the building and grounds.
Yeah, the first one's pretty easy. It's our annual summer work crew. We did up the hourly amount. If we, sometimes we get some students to help with the custodial work. It might be particularly beneficial for us this year too, as we prepare with the new school. And then we also sometimes have some technology folks. So that we try to get it to at least a number that would somewhat appeal to students. It was at around $725, I believe. But the potential there to hire some students over the summer for support. We very rarely, as a matter of fact, we don't usually get even 8 students to apply, but we do get a few from here and there. And then we have a presentation tonight we've talked about some design things. There were some questions coming out of one of the options in particular. And I shared just some feedback with the board and I asked Scott to join us and just talk about some of the possibilities that if we proceed with further design of this option that we would be looking at. So we'll get that PowerPoint up. And Scott will talk through just some of the things he played with. And it's important to understand that, I gave Scott this information, like Wednesday or Thursday. And, this is just hey, let me put some time into it and get you something and just kind of show the board the possibilities in terms of an addition for the building.
Sure. And this kind of expands upon the option 4 that that has been the consensus of the direction we're going to go. So we can go to the next slide, Kurt. So this basically looks at where do we put the new gym in that option. There was I think Director Marlowe had questioned, can we put it in a different location? And our concern originally with that was, well, if we do that, we're not putting it over top of where the existing auxiliary gym is. We might have to renovate more area. Well, we explored that option and basically said, all right, if we put it over there, we'll just still take down the original existing auxiliary gym and save some cost there. So you're not increasing the budget by doing that. So what you'll see is this is the original scope of work kind of combined. If you remember, we went through all the different colors, but that blue piece in the bottom right there, that was the gym, the locker room, the new entrance for the gymnasium. And that basically was in place of the auxiliary gym. We had a lot of other questions when we last presented about what happens with the site, what are we doing with the rest of the site? So if you go to the next slide, you'll kind of see what that looks like in this option. So it's kind of hard to see the size of that, but one of the things that we want to address, we know that there's issues with parent drop off and pickup. So what does this addition do to that area of the site? How do we address that? Buses are a little bit of a chaotic event at the end of the day too. So what we're showing is kind of a reorganization, somewhat of a reorganization of the site, still having the buses in the front, but doing a paved area for those buses where they pull in kind of chevron style. So they would all pull in parallel to each other. Kids would load, they'd pull out one after another from the front. So that would all happen in the front of the front of the school there and not block any of that the drive coming across there. Parent drop off and pickup would remain in the rear of the building. And then we would relocate the van since we would no longer have sixth grade here and have to do a separate entrance in the rear. We would have the van pick up and drop off in the loop and towards the current middle school middle school entrance. And then we're showing a concept where we might be able to come off of School Drive a little further down the road and maybe have another ingress and egress point. But once again, as Dr. Mixer said, this is very preliminary, but this kind of gives you a sense of what that option might look like, that original option with that gym there. So this is 300 and I believe 80 some spaces. You currently have about 410 on site. So obviously when you add square footage of the gym in that location, we lose some of the parking spaces. So you can go to the next slide. This is just a blow up of the floor plan and the adjacencies. This kind of worked well. Once again, all the gyms on that one single level. Auditorium would still enter on the side of the building where you currently enter. It gives you an idea of what that floor plan looks like. Next slide. And then, so we explored what does it look like if we put the gymnasium in that kind of dead space in your parking area to the plan north. You can see where that blue kind of fits in there. I will say there are some challenges. Grade kind of falls off there. You got a lower section of the building where you have a maintenance receiving area that's at a lower elevation. So there's some challenges there. But overall, all three of these concepts we're going to look at are relatively the same cost. One might be a couple $100,000 more than the other, but in the grand scheme of a $40 million project, it's not like one's going to be $1 million more than the other. So they're all relatively in line with the cost. This might be a little bit more expensive just because of those grade issues we have to deal with. But it basically looks to infill that area. So if you go to the next slide. From a parking standpoint, similar concept. We'll locate things the circulation in the same spot as that original option, but in this one, that kind of cleans up that rear parking lot area. You get 271 spaces back there, which is a little bit more than the previous option. So you're kind of almost right at where your existing parking count was. Don't forget, with sixth grade leading, you're going to have less parking needs over here, at least from a daily use standpoint. Obviously, after hours use, you're going to still see the same need. But that kind of cleans up that parking lot a little bit. If you go to the next slide.
And I don't think you mentioned it, but that has over 400 spaces. Just over 400. And I also want to mention that we got this afternoon, so we'll get it up on board docs, and I can email you the PowerPoint as well. But I think this was an idea because of that weird space. You can see I don't want to take your thunder, but I was a little excited about the flow here. You can see one of the things that I was concerned about is parking for the turf field and ultimately the football field too. But that if you look at that, and you can barely get to see the bottom, but the lane that goes down to where the new field house is, there's a really pretty good straight path from a lot of those parking spots there. It's a straight shot down to be able to get down to the field house, which was a big concern. And so, a couple of you have reached out to me and said, in this whole scheme of things, it's great to renovate some of the high school stuff, but from a just pure parking lot traffic flow, it's a mess. What can we do? So very much appreciate you looking at that, Scott, but go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the drawbacks of this is just the proximity of the gym. It's across the other side of the auditorium. We were actually talking before the meeting, and there might be ways to connect the main entrance to the gym to the main entrance of the existing gym with some sort of corridor interior circulation. But that is one drawback of this scheme. You don't have the phys ed and athletics as consolidated as in the other, but you still keep kind of that side of the building as your kind of after hours public use, where you could still close off the rest of the building, and you don't have the gym kind of where you have it now in the middle school. So next slide. And then the last one we looked at was, what if we don't put it on the end of the building? The concern was we're getting too long into that parking lot, but we kind of nested kind of in the corner of where the gym is and right behind the music department, and put it there and develop some sort of entrance. So that's what this concept looks at. And then if you go to the next slide. From a circulation standpoint, it does create a little bit of an odd parking lot. However, that would lend itself to a very nice kind of parent drop-off circulation, kind of drive down that long pathway there. But I think this is the least amount of parking spaces at 356. So probably about 50 spaces less than what your current count is. But once again, similar circulation for the rest of the site. So, once again, the difference between these, there's going to be some difference in cost. If we were to develop one of these a little bit further, then we would understand that a little bit more. But in the grand scheme of things, not significantly different between the three of them. And once again, we're still, we started option 4 at 46. You saw an option 4A at the work session that looked to bring the admin in board of the building and took off about $1.5 million of cost. So with any of these options, we're still going to be looking at, roll up the sleeves, figuring out how else we can get back to that kind of $40 million target number. And, but certainly this, we wanted to get some of the options in front of you for the gym and location for consideration.
And I just want to clarify, you're not voting on any of these tonight. We're just trying to demonstrate the approval of option 4A allows us to start tinkering and getting into the more heavy design with the understanding that there'll be, we're exploring the addition part somewhere. Just in the comments that were made about parking flow, traffic flow and, the location and that dead area that, he's just in a short period of time kind of demonstrating through the design phase what's possible. And it just so happened that, I shared with him that I really liked the one in particular, but, and that was a quick, you guys did that in a couple of days and we didn't really talk much about it, but thank you again. So that you're just voting on the exploration of that, of something along these lines. Just want to clarify what you're voting on.
Any questions?
I guess the first question, and it goes along with what Dr. Messinger was saying. So tonight we're going to vote on essentially contracting with you to develop these designs in greater detail.
Yeah, you're essentially already contracted with us. This is basically giving us direction. If you remember, we came here with 4 different options. This
Right.
basically says this is one you should focus on and develop, to the next step and take through the design phase. So it's basically give us direction on that option.
So I'm sorry.
No, that's
okay. So for informational purposes, you had emailed to Dr. Messinger the costs of this. Is this so? And there were listed a number of things: schematic design, design development, construction documents, bidding. What portion here are we dedicating for you to do if we vote for it to?
Well, we are at any point in the process of any design, you can basically say, hey, hold on, time out. We want to hold off or stop. There's no, so you're really not, so we're in the midst of schematic design. And from a timing standpoint, basically, in order for us to finish schematic design, we need to figure out which one of these high level options and then take it to the next level and wrap that up.
Okay.
And I would envision that would take us through sometime in February to finish that schematic design if we get direction on the option tonight.
Okay. My last question before I turn it over to everyone else is, obviously we're now living in a very complicated supply chain and market environment. What has CRA's experience been recently with projected bids, and how have those bids actually materialized?
Yeah. Great question. So we're seeing things slightly improve. Let me clarify. A slightly improved means they're not going up as fast and increasing as much as we've seen in the past. It doesn't mean that we're seeing things come down in price. Certainly, if that's going to happen, we're going to expect to see a recession first before that happens. But we went from bidding projects where we had to, basically solicit interest and make sure we have enough coverage for bidders. Certainly on a messy renovation project versus a brand new project, people are in the contract have a lot of work. They're going to pick and choose their projects. So we had some projects that weren't as attractive that we had to make sure we had coverage. Now we're having contractors contact us and say, hey, what do you have bidding? So that hasn't happened in a while. So it's still tough to forecast. The material supply chain, as soon as one thing catches up and we're good and we're roofing's good and insulation's good, but other things are rearing their ugly head, like mechanical equipment and electrical panels. So things are still evolving in that sense. We're still probably 10 months out before we're ready to go out to bid for this. So a lot will clear up between now and then. We're hoping, and we forecasted in the cost model that escalation is going to level out, and maybe, if we reach a recession point, it'll flatten out. But so a lot will be telling over the next year, but certainly we're seeing a sign of slowing.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So in this plan, the auditorium and music is kind of surrounded by athletics. What can be done to protect if something is happening in the auditorium while an exciting game is happening, to protect the noise, to keep
Sure.
the noise where it needs to be?
Yeah, certainly that with any of these, probably the closest one would be the second option 4.2, which was with the gym in the pocket there. But certainly the separation of the corridor with some of the support spaces surrounding the auditorium help from an acoustical standpoint. When we renovate the auditorium, certainly we currently have in the scope of work to do, a comprehensive renovation of the auditorium where we'll address a lot of those acoustic concerns and things like that. But certainly we wouldn't expect it to be any different and if not, and most likely better than it is currently. So I don't know if you currently experience any issues from a noise standpoint, if you have something happening in the auditorium at the same time as a sporting event. Okay.
The only thing that I am aware of is the weight room being close to the band room, that there is a noise issue.
And, we've heard from before the weight room as a priority. That's something that we need to look into. Certainly, Kirk, if you go back one slide, the weight room's currently in that in that space right below. Yep. Thank you, Kirk. And we've heard multiple times that that's not large enough from a safety standpoint, from equipment standpoint. We've talked before about the kitchen moving to the north and the areas in red and not knowing what it might be, but that might be an ideal space for a relocated weight room. We haven't talked about that internally with the administration, but certainly that would also remove it and put it across the hall where it's not going to be a noise concern.
Any other questions?
I got a general question. And please stop me, Gary, if I'm jumping ahead way too fast. But do you know how many change orders we had with the field house or the elementary school?
Off the top of my head, I do not.
Okay. All right. I was
As
just
far
curious.
as a percentage, I mean, typically we could track that as a percentage, like what percentage it is, certainly in the cost of this, we've incorporated a certain percentage, a little bit higher than we do for new construction because you're dealing with existing. But I could certainly get that number.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what that is. Maybe this is more of a question for Fadavia, but what kind of protections do we have in place once we get the, it's good, you get further along down the line, it's going to cost us X amount and, change orders start popping up. Maybe that's more of a question for Fidavia or you guys, but before we get too far down the line, I just want to
Yeah.
kind of
Well, I can get,
hear about
I'm-
change
I'm-
orders and how that's handled and if we have any protections in place.
Sure. Dan, I certainly can invite Dan to come in February, talk a little bit about that. They've been involved in the process heavily and because of that, more so even than with the first project. And if if he said it one time, he said it, 20 times, we need to come in on our projected number. We need to come in on budget. So they've put a few steps in place here to help ensure that the numbers that we're talking about getting are that they feel good about those numbers. In terms of the change orders, I mean, they're on the website and we did start numbering them because we actually get them by number. I don't know off the top of my head. What I will say is that in both projects, we're still, remember, there's a contingency fund as part of the bidding process. And so if, for instance, the entire bid was $30 million, there is a contingency fund as part of that included in that $30 million. So whatever percentage we dictate, whether it's, if it's 10%, there's a contingency fund of $300,000. In both projects right now, we are under the contingency, the amount. We have not hit it. We're at a point where the field house, we're not going to hit it. I feel pretty comfortable in saying that. If we hit it at the elementary, it's only going to be hit because of the additional sidewalk that the township wants, not because of the project itself. So within both of those projects, that contingency fund has been able to cover any change orders that were initially that we've had. And if you remember back to probably the first ones that we talked about, some of the soil stuff that, is hard to anticipate. I mean, there were some substantial soil things that we had to do there, but we're still within that bid amount and we have not gone over the contingency fund. But in this particular case, Fidavia has really been active in discussions on the budget and that number and not going over that number. But I will certainly, Dan will be more than willing to join us at one of the 2 meetings in February to talk more about that if you'd like.
Great, thank you. Because for my limited understanding, renovations do have more of a risk, I guess, for change orders. And just wanted to find out how it's being handled and what kind of protections are in place for us as we kind of pull the trigger on this one. Thank you.
So we are not approving to put this out to bid right now. But if we get to that point and we put this out to bid and we accept the bid, then all of the costs of this schematic design are all included in that final price.
So essentially, as we move through the design phase, we will invoice the district as we move along and as we progress to the next phase. And I think the number you asked for was, or someone asked for was, what is it to get the bidding? So that number at that time would be what you would expend to date. Certainly if, let's say for some reason the bids are way too high and over the budget and we don't want to accept bids, then at that time, we would no longer have services, so that's all you would spend up to that date.
Okay, you answered my question before I asked it. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. I think what we'll do on item 10, I think we'll separate item 10.1 and 10.2 simply because I want to get a roll call vote on 10.2. So we'll move first with 10.1. That's the summer work crew. Is there a motion to approve item 10.1? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of I'm sorry. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving 10.1, please indicate with a yes.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, 10.1 carries unanimously. We'll move then to 10.2, and this is the buildings and grounds item that we just discussed. Is there a motion to approve item 10.2? And again, this is to approve the development of the continued schematic design of option 4 as it's been described here.
Motion to approve 10.2.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just, again, just want simple clarification here. He showed us three options of option 4. We're not voting on any one of those particular options. We're just voting saying we're choosing option 4 as in general. And from there, we'll decide if it's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 or whatever.
Yes, thank you. Good,
Okay.
good question. That's exactly what we're doing. We're voting to commission them to move forward with designing something in the renovation of the school. Yeah, we're not approving any of the sub options or any of the specific designs that we've seen at this point. It's just commissioning them to continue with the development of that design. Good question. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mrs. Martin, kind of a roll call vote on this item.
Yes. Bucks,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Erdman,
Yes.
Marlowe,
Yes.
Nom,
Yes.
all in favor.
Great. Thank you very much. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move to item 11, extracurricular.
Just one item there. It's just an updated spring coaches list. Is over the next 2 months, you'll see some additions with volunteer coaches and assistant coaches. Also have some changes in terms of head coaches. Mr. Berdinka is going to be looking at taking over the tennis position. He already coaches the girls in the fall. And then on the track side, we have that position currently open, although there's some interest from one of the assistant coaches at this point that we'll look into and have one ready to go for next month.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve item 11?
Motion to approve item 11.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving item 11, please state so.
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. And item 12, curriculum.
Some final adoption of policies for you. In addition, a tentative adoption of the acceptable use policy. And then we had done, remember I had we had given you the facility dog program document that was tentative. And so that was moving into a final approval of that as well.
Great. Thank you. Any questions on item 12? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve items 12.1 through 12.3?
Motion to approve 12.1 through 12.3.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving 12.1 through 12.3, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Item 13, human relations.
Yeah, just some revised substitute list for you. In addition, 13.2 is a job description for the building support substitute. I want to thank Mrs. Bruce for her creativity. Looking at taking advantage of some really dedicated folks that help us from a substitute standpoint. You know, we approved 4 building substitutes a couple of years ago. We've had a couple at a time. We've had one that's been consistent. But one of the downfalls is the loss of benefits over the summer. Making some adjustments here to adapt the position to a classified position was a pretty creative approach to helping us secure some additional substitutes. And you're going to see later that we actually have an additional person now that's interested. So 13.3 then is just column movements that have been submitted. 13.4 are mentors that we have up for you. We also have the redesignation, as we talked about, Dr. McInerney, who joined us tonight. Hi, Dr. McInerney. And redesignating her. We put an anticipated date there just, based on how things go in terms of when we get into the new building. In order to address the position of the building support substitute, I had to put in our appendix, list that position with some details that, so that under Appendix A, that was revised to add that position. And then 13.7 is an employment. We have Amy Taylor, who's going to be joining us at first grade at Fredericksburg, who is with us tonight. Amy, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you. Appreciate you applying and starting soon, right? Starting tomorrow. That's great. That's if they like you. They might say no, you know. And then Mrs. Giesemann, who's going to help us out with a building support position. Right now, we're going to focus her attention on Jonestown. That's a building that every day seems to be short subs. And it'll help us eliminate having to pull reading specialists and learning support teachers into the role of covering classes. So we're excited to have her. I actually have worked with her in the past, so she's a great employee. So those are our 13 items.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve items 13.1 through 13.7? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Erdman is the second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving items 13.1 through 13.7, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Look forward to seeing you work tomorrow. We'll all be there. Okay, is there any information items for tonight? No. Okay, we'll move to item 15. This is our reports from the committees. Change Order Committee, Director Bucks, anything?
We have not had any change order meetings since the last school board meeting.
Thank you. And I would note that Mr. Reese did just email everyone the lists of the change orders as requested. So we do have those in our email now. CTC, Director Klein.
Yes, I have a few updates for you. If you're as old as me or a little bit older, you probably knew Lebanon CTC as VOTEC. Well, they never officially changed the name to Career and Technology Center. It generates some reporting issues. They are officially trying to change the name now to CTC. I talked about the NASA project. Well, one of the project managers from NASA came out to visit CTC and talk to the class, and it was pretty cool to have somebody from NASA come in and tour our facility. One of the December students of the month was Sydney Hoffman for cosmetology. She is a Northern Lebanon student. They are working on replacing a ventilation system, with programs like diesel and automotive. Every now and then you have to kind of reevaluate where you're at with that and make some upgrades. And lastly, Glenn Meck, the administrative director, served the CTC for 27 years, and he is going to retire June 30th this year. So we're going to be in the process of looking for some candidates to fill his shoes. Thank you.
Good report. Thank you. IU 13, Director Murray.
I do not have a report this month. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislative Liaison, Director England.
Yes, the state of Pennsylvania has one of the widest funding gaps between the low wealth and high wealth districts of any state in our country. And due to the fact that our state provides a smaller share of funding for education than nearly any other state, for us, that's about a third of public school funding. School districts across Pennsylvania are overly reliant on local funding, which leads to significant disparity between the rich and the poor school districts. The average high wealth school district spends $3,778 per student more than the average low wealth school district. And so back in 2014, a lawsuit was filed by the Public Interest Law Center, the Education Law Center of Pennsylvania, along with another group on behalf of 6 school districts, 5 parents, and 2 statewide organizations against the legislative leaders, state education officials, and the governor. A court order has been requested that would force the state legislature to comply with the state constitution and ensure that all PA students have access to a high quality public education. So the school districts, parents, and advocacy groups made their final arguments 5 months ago, and it is possible that the judge who is handling the case could issue a decision in the not too distant future, though there has not been a deadline given for that. Although the decision will likely be appealed regardless of which side it lands on, there are some advocating that the state legislature get in front of the court and work at passing laws that would help to prevent the inequity that has resulted from depending on local taxes to make up the gap in funding our schools. So I would just say, stay tuned.
Great. Excellent report. Thank you. PSBA liaison, Director Bucks.
PSBA is going to be having their annual advocacy day once again, and that this year will occur on Tuesday, April 18th. You can attend in person at the Capitol and meet with PSBA leaders and school board colleagues and hear kind of the major talking points of PSBA, as well as meet with our legislators. There's also a virtual option where they can connect you with legislators virtually as well.
Great. Thank you. Good report. That's it for item 15. Is there any new business for this evening? Hearing none, just would note under item 18, the dates to remember, fairly normal month coming up. Not a whole lot on that list to remember, and we will move to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn this evening? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please indicate with a yes or an aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.